Newsfirst at 9. Headlines.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Primetime News, come to you live from the Newsfirst Centre here in Colombo. I'm Shahin Jurangpati, and these are your headlines. Was the Indian military directly involved in the war in 2009? Mixed reactions from various factions. Commonwealth Secretary General expresses disappointment over Canada's decision to suspend funding. 51 killed in road accidents over the long weekend. Close to 300 people still unaccounted for in South Korea ferry disaster. Cause of the sinking yet to be ascertained. Well, those are tonight's headlines. We now cross over to the main desk for these stories in detail and much more.
Thank you, Shahin, and good evening. I'm Madhushka Balasuri.
I'm Jaffna. Look at your top story for tonight. The Secretary General of the Commonwealth has expressed his disappointment over Canada's suspension of technical assistance funding to the organisation. In a statement on the organisation's website, Sharma said he looked forward to the resumption of contributions to the fund by Canada. Sharma noted that the Mutual and Voluntary Fund is the principal means for provision of technical assistance to the Commonwealth nations. Sharma also recalled that Canada has a long and valued record of support for the work of the Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation. The Secretary General of the Commonwealth added that the difficult adjustments to the Commonwealth development programs would be made and expressed confidence that the important priorities agreed by the Commonwealth member states collectively can still be delivered, with results and impact for the benefit of the people of the Commonwealth in accordance with the current strategic plan.
In what was described as not a surprise move, the Ministry of External Affairs issued a special statement today following Canada's decision to suspend technical assistance funding to the Commonwealth. In a point-by-point statement rebuffing the decision, the Ministry of External Affairs had this to say on the matter.
This announcement is not a surprise. It may be recalled that when the Canadian Prime Minister announced his non-attendance of the 2013 Chogam in Colombo, he also alluded to the issue of cutting back his government's contributions to the Commonwealth. Further, during conversation with the Canadian government representative in Sri Lanka over a year ago, it was mentioned that Canada was considering the rationalization of their contributions to international organizations, including the Commonwealth. When Sri Lanka was to assume chairmanship of the Commonwealth, the Canadian government sought to make their reservations in this regard as the reason for the cut. Concern has been expressed amongst the wider Commonwealth that the countries which provide the majority of the finances seek to unduly influence the workings of the organization. This action by Canada stands in evidence of such machinations. Regrettably, the Canadian government has sought to use its voluntary funds as a political tool based on the dictates of electoral compulsions, thereby holding the membership of the wider Commonwealth to ransom through competing claims for power. Further, the relentless action pursued by Canada on Sri Lanka will only seek to undermine the delicate reconciliation process, as the bona fides of the basis of that government's trajectory is questionable and not in tandem with the interests of the people of Sri Lanka. It is the government of Sri Lanka which is best placed to continue the evolution of a homegrown solution for its people in accordance with a realistic time frame. This action taken by Canada is at variance with the underlying spirit of the Commonwealth as a voluntary organization of sovereign nations, with diversity being its hallmark. Sri Lanka upholds Commonwealth values and has never sought their change. The Canadian Foreign Minister's comment in justifying Canada's action is a castigation of the organization as a whole, and we believe that the wider Commonwealth stands in solidarity against such manipulations.
Now, in a petition submitted to the Indian Supreme Court claiming that the Indian military personnel were directly involved in the war in Sri Lanka in 2009 has brought out mixed reactions from various stakeholders. Newsfirst delves deep into the issue in this 360-degree report.
A public interest litigation filed in the Supreme Court of India says that Indian military personnel took direct part in the war in Sri Lanka in 2009 and that some were even injured in battle. The Times of India reported that the PIL, citing eyewitness evidence and an international probe, was filed by Advocate Ram Shankar, the Secretary of the Delhi Tamil Advocates Association. The petition is to be considered before the Indian Supreme Court tomorrow. The petitioner Ram Shankar expressed these views to the BBC Sinhala service yesterday.
We have received plenty of evidence that the assistance of the Indian Army proved important in the final days of the war in Sri Lanka. This was revealed by a public judicial council which convened in Germany. We have asked the Supreme Court to establish a tribunal to look into which Indian military officers were there and what happened. We are pointing out through this case that Indian military personnel were involved. As per the Indian Constitution, if India is to deploy troops to another country, parliamentary approval is required. But the government did not obtain such approval.
However, former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca, also speaking to the BBC Sinhala service, rejected these allegations.
It is completely false. During the 2-year, 9-month-long conflict, no foreign army battled together with our army against terrorists. Our Sri Lankan army took the battle forward alone.
Prior
to this, the government had said that they received aid from several countries in the final stages of the war. We did not receive any assistance from India in that battle. We purchased arms from some countries. Some countries provided us with intelligence, not troops. Some countries gave their approval for us to continue with the battle, but India was not involved.
It
was once reported in the media that technical officers from the Indian Air Force were injured in the LTT attack on an Air Force base in Vaunia. Could this incident be connected to this issue? I am unaware of this matter. I do know that the Air Force used radar from India. I am not aware, however, if there were Indian Air Force technical officers in the camps. As far as I know, they were not there. The advocate who lodged the petition says there are eyewitness accounts that an Indian Sikh officer was the commanding officer of Indian forces on the ground. It is a baseless lie. The commanding officers in Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu and the entire north and east were Sri Lankans. No foreign armies were involved with us.
Army media spokesperson Brigadier Ruan Vanagasuriya had this to say on the matter.
Sri Lanka and India have enjoyed thousands of years of historic relationship, and this relationship has grown from strength to strength after independence. Particularly in the field of defense, the Indian armed forces have assisted the Sri Lankan armed forces in their professional development, particularly in training. There has been number of training exercises wherein Sri Lankan armed forces and Indian armed forces could share knowledge and experience with each other. So we are truly grateful to the Indian armed forces for the assistance that they have provided in professionally developing the Sri Lankan armed forces. We appreciate the support that the Indian armed forces have provided the Sri Lankan armed forces in the professional development by way of training and assistance in other exercises.
The police say that the 41 individuals who were arrested in connection with aiding and abetting LTTE activities will be questioned further by the Terrorist Investigation Division or the TID. Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohana said that the individuals were apprehended from several locations in the northern province.
Police media spokesperson SSP Ajit Rohana recently said that during the past 2 months, 65 persons were arrested on suspicion of being involved in attempts to revive the LTTE. SSP Rohana said that 5 of these detainees were released and the remainder were being held at detention centres gazetted by the Ministry of Defence. On the 13th and the 14th of this month, 19 others were released after being produced before court. The police said that among those who were released over the weekend were the mothers of Gobi and Appan, who were incidentally providing leadership for the resurgence of the LTTE. The police media spokesperson said that sporadic search operations are launched in the northern province and added that intelligence units have been put on alert. Certain sections of society have been expressing their views on attempts being made to revive the LTTE and the recent events surrounding it. They are attempting to take this country towards a situation where Tamil parties and people are engendered to make some blasts in certain areas. I am saying this very clearly today. I said this 3 months ago as well. 1 or 2 people will be shot dead in the north after the Geneva sessions. Why did I say this? This is because the manner in which certain politicians were getting close to civilians. 3 youth were chased after in a jungle and gunned down due to the actions of the Tamil National Alliance. This is an unwanted situation. Also, when people are making submissions, the opposition does not take note of it. Everyone is working towards sustaining themselves.
ආණ්ඩුව කොටි ඇවිල්ලා කියලා බොරු ප්‍රචාරයක් ගෙනියනවා. ප්‍රචණ්ඩත්වයට ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැතුව
The government is engaged in false propaganda saying there is a resurgence of the LTTE. The world envisages us to find a permanent solution to the national question through the maximum devolution of power in a one-country framework without moving to violence and an armed struggle. Our people have given us a mandate. This mandate clearly indicates that power should be devolved in order to find a solution to the national question. This is exactly what we are doing.
ඒකෙන් පැහැදිලිව අපිට කියලා තියෙන්නේ එක රට තුල උපරිම බලය බෙදීම ක්‍රමය තුල මේ ජාතික ප්‍රශ්නයට විසඳීමක් හොයන්න කියලා. ඒකයි අපි කරන්නේ.
මේ රටේ නැවත ත්‍රස්තවාදය ඔලු උස්සනවා නම්
We are against any attempt to break this country into two and the resurgence of terrorism. There is no need for the Tamil people to establish a separate state within this country. This government said that terrorism has been eradicated. If they are now saying that there is a resurgence of the LTTE, it is the government who should be held responsible for it, not us.
In your local news, the parents of a young girl whose body was found in a well in the Gurunagar area in Jaffna say they have suspicions regarding the circumstances surrounding her death. A group, including the girl's family, staged a demonstration opposite the residence of the Bishop of Jaffna today.
The final rites for the young woman were observed in Gurunagar, Jaffna today. The body of the young woman who had left home on Sunday was discovered inside a well the day before yesterday. She was 22 years old. Her family who engaged in this demonstration demanded the arrest of the suspects in her death.
We sent her for missionary education, but the priests had spoken to my child and asked her if she had a lover before and if she could be their lover. Both of them had called her into their rooms. When she said no, they had chased after her. They had warned her not to tell anyone about this and that if she did, she would be destroyed. These two priests have taken away my daughter's life. We ask that they be taken away from here or that they be arrested. Why is the bishop's house silent on this issue?
When they called her on the telephone, I asked her what she spoke about with the priest. I asked her why she told the priest that she was scared. It was when I asked her that I got to know about this story. I asked my daughter why she didn't tell us about this before. She said that they had told her that they would be angered and would destroy her. Now they have destroyed my daughter's life.
On a related note, the body of a 30-year-old woman was discovered inside a well in the Punne Niravi area in Kilinochchi on the 13th of this month. The police say that a suspect has been arrested and is due to be produced in court tomorrow. Meanwhile, at a media briefing held in Colombo today, the Unity Through Power Devolution organization expressed the following views on the discovery of female bodies in the Jaffna area in the recent past.
In Jaffna, people are killed and then dumped into wells. During this month alone, 3 people were killed and then dumped into wells. This is a new trend. The Army, Navy, Air Force, STF, you name it, they are all there.
Army Navy Air Force Police STF වෙනම ගම්බට්ට ඕනේද ඔක්කොම ඉන්නවා
But still there are murders and assaults taking place. So it is not a secret to anyone that the people in that area continue to live harsh lives.
In her first and only campaign meeting in Tamil Nadu, Congress party leader Sonia Gandhi called upon the people to reject BJP Prime Ministerial candidate Narendra Modi, rebutting claims by regional political parties that Congress has not done enough for Sri Lankan Tamils. Gandhi said that the Congress has done more than any other party for the welfare of Sri Lankan Tamils. With the world's largest democracy now in full electoral mobilization, the main parties contesting the election, the Congress Party and the Bharatiya Janata Party, are trading barbs as campaigning intensifies in the 5-week-long election.
Daughter of India's first family, Priyanka Gandhi, today appealed to people to vote for the ideology of uniting people, followed by the ruling Congress, as she campaigns in Raebareli constituency of northern Uttar Pradesh for her mother Sonia Gandhi, who is also the party chief. Sonia Gandhi filed her nomination for the forthcoming general elections from the long-time stronghold of the Nehru Gandhi family, Raebareli, on April 2nd. Gandhi, widely seen as the power behind the throne, attended special prayers before filing her nomination papers in a bid to enter the lower house of parliament through her family's pocket borough.
Our ideology, the Congress Party's ideology, is about uniting people. We work for the unity of the nation. The ideology of the opposition party is all about centralization of power. They want to promote a few people and neglect the rest.
India's main opposition's prime ministerial candidate Narendra Modi hit back at ruling Congress chief Sonia Gandhi over her televised appeal to the voters to destroy the divisive and autocratic forces of the national politics, which clearly hinted at the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Now they have started giving out messages to the country through advertisements on television. They have started encouraging paid news. They have money. They can buy the television. They can buy time on television. And they say their messages. They have so much money earned from here, so they would spend few bucks here. But Bhagalpur should answer to the questions raised.
First up in your international news tonight, almost 300 people remain unaccounted for after a ferry carrying 459 people capsized and sank off South Korea. The ferry, carrying mainly school students, was travelling from the port of Incheon in the northwest to the southern resort island of Jeju. 3 people are known to have drowned, while at least 13 have been injured. South Korean officials had earlier said that 368 people had been plucked to safety, but later said there had been a counting error. They have now revised down the number rescued to 164. Officials also revised down the number of people on the ferry from 476. Images showed the ferry listing at a severe angle and then later almost completely submerged, with only a small part of its hull visible. It sank within 2 hours of sending a distress signal.
Several Coast Guard, military and commercial vessels were involved in the rescue effort, which unfolded rapidly this morning. Pictures from the scene showed rescue teams balanced on the sinking hull, pulling teenagers from cabin windows. Some of their classmates jumped into the sea as the ship went down. Reports suggest some of those rescued were picked up by nearby commercial vessels. Navy divers are now searching the scene for those unaccounted for, but the work was challenging. It is not yet clear what caused the incident, but witnesses described hearing an impact before the ship listed and quickly sank.
그 우현 쪽에서 거기 그 헬기 타려고 이동했거든요. 그 바 닫고 거기에서 그 물이 갑자기 터나오는 거예요. 물이 계속 갑자기 차도 네, 세기통들이 조종들 떠다니고 물이 여기까지 들어왔어요. 여기
또 쏠리기 시작하니까 금방 물이 들어오기 시작하는데
예, 그게 몸으로 느낄 정도로
네.
쏠리면서
아니 눈으로 보이죠.
예.
그 선실 바로 옆에가 복도인데 그쪽으로 그 난간 위로 그냥 물이 넘쳐오기 시작하는데 이제는 탈출해야 된다는 것을 직감하죠.
According to reports, the personnel of 6 armed transport vehicles sent to the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk have switched sides and have joined the pro-federalist activists. One witness said, quote, "The main armed transport vehicle had a Russian flag on it and they left together with our protesters towards Slavyansk," unquote.
The number of personnel from the transport vehicles were not specified. The Ukrainian army started a special operation in a crackdown on self-defense activists in eastern Ukraine. The operation targeted the cities of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk in the Donetsk region. At least 4 protesters were killed and 2 others wounded as Ukrainian troops stormed an airfield in Kramatorsk. Eastern Ukraine has been swept by rallies beginning last month. Russia condemned the decision by the new Ukrainian authorities to use force against the federalization supporters, saying it was an extremely unpleasant turn of events. Earlier, the US State Department said it anticipates more related sanctions on Russia, but suggested no action was likely before a diplomatic meeting in Geneva this week.
In terms of sanctions, our national security team is in active discussions about the next round of sanctions, as they have been.
Ukrainian politician Yulia Tymoshenko said Russia has started a new type of war in Ukraine and announced creation of resistance movement against Russia.
What is going on in the east of Ukraine is not a single terrorist operation. It's not a separate program of destabilization of the region. It's not a situational action of Russia against Ukraine. It's a real war, but a new type of war. Today we announce creation of all Ukrainian resistance movement against the Russian aggression.
Загальнонаціонального руху опору російській агресії.
The auspicious time for the anointing of the head with oil, which is considered to be one of the important and the final customs to be observed during the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, was scheduled at 11:16 this morning. The astrologers noted that it is suitable to apply oil and nanu mixed with extracts from kohomba leaves on the head while dressed in green-colored clothes facing the south, while placing kohomba leaves on the head and kolan leaves under the feet. The state function for the anointing of the head with oil was held under the patronage of President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Koshinna Rajamaha Vihara in Ganemulla Gampaha. Several ministers, MPs and residents of the area took part in this event. The event was organized by the Ministry of Indigenous Medicine.
Now, Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is currently in Malaysia, paid a courtesy call on Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak yesterday. The Sri Lanka delegation, led by the Defence Secretary, had held discussions with the Malaysian Prime Minister for half an hour, according to the Prime Minister's office. The delegation in Malaysia is attending the 14th Defence Service Asia exhibition, which will conclude tomorrow at the Putra World Trade Center.
51 deaths due to fatal road accidents have been reported as of yesterday from the 10th of April. According to the police, 44 fatal road accidents have been reported to the police during this time frame.
A total of nearly 500 accidents have been reported to the police as of yesterday from the 10th of April. Accidents were also reported yesterday. One person was killed and 2 sustained injuries in a motor accident which took place on the Gol-Colombo main road in the Magalkanda area in Berwala yesterday. The accident was a result of a collision between a 3-wheeler which was travelling towards Colombo and a luxury private bus which was en route to go. A passenger in the 3-wheeler died in the accident. The deceased was identified as 29-year-old G.A. Sumudu Sanjeeva, a resident of Keselhenava, Horana. The driver of the 3-wheeler and the father of the deceased victim sustained injuries in the accident, while the driver of the bus was arrested. Meanwhile, 2 individuals died in the motor accident on the Horana Ratnapura main road in the Porwadanda area at around 11:30 last night. The police said that the motorbike which the 2 victims were travelling on had met with the accident while they were returning home from a concert. The police added that the motorbike had collided with a van plying from Ingiriya to Horana when it was making a turn into a by-road. The police said that thereafter the 2 riders were run over by a car after the motorbike fell over. The two victims were Ruchira Madhusankar and Kasundesha Priya, both aged 19, and residents of Salman Uyan Kanda and Maputugala in the Poruadanda area. The drivers of the car and the van who fled the scene eventually handed themselves over to the Inguri police this morning. Meanwhile, the police said that they have arrested 1,130 drunk drivers during the special operation, which commenced on the 10th of this month. A communique released by the police media states that over the past 24 hours, as of 6 p.m. yesterday, they had arrested 253 drunk drivers.
Newsfirst U reporters Nalaka Egudavita and Vajira Jayasinghe filed these reports.
3
persons were injured when a van veered off and toppled onto the roof of a house in the Ududumbura area along the Kandy Mahayangania road at about 11:30 this morning. Following the incident, the injured were admitted to the Ududumbura hospital. An individual has drowned in the Kalani River in the Kapugura area. The deceased has been identified as a resident of Ragama. The Dompe police are conducting further investigations.
And up next is Crime Watch.
Several fishing boats and catamarans have been destroyed in a fire in the Valley Patamvila fisheries port in Ambalantota. The police say they are yet to determine whether the fire was an accident or an act of arson. The fire had broken out close to where the boats had been berthed at about 10 o'clock last night. The police say that 3 fishing boats and 4 fiber catamarans had been destroyed. Fishermen buy these boats using their hard-earned money. One boat was bought several days ago at a cost of 149,000. It was to undertake its maiden voyage at sea at the auspicious time today. The cause of the fire has not been ascertained as yet. The Hungama police are conducting further investigations.
The Around the World team that is creating awareness on the World Youth Conference 2014 departed for Amsterdam, Netherlands today. Earlier today, the team attended a special function held at the Sri Lankan Permanent Mission to the UN in New York. Newsfirst Ramesh Irugal Bandara reports.
Around the World in 40 days.
The Around the World team attended a special function held to mark the Sinhala and Tamil New Year at the Sri Lankan Permanent Mission in New York. The event, which was spearheaded by Deputy Permanent Representative Major General Shavindra Silva, was also attended by representatives of youth organizations. The team created awareness on the World Youth Conference and also presented special badges to the youth delegates that were present at the occasion. The US national flag was presented to the delegation at the occasion as well.
We also are encouraging people like from different sphere of work, from different areas to come to the conference and then have the voice so that, in the post-2015 agenda, everyone is inclusive or everyone is included and the voices.
It's really nice to have a cultural gathering in a location that is Eastern and not so, that's not so traditionally set on a Western mentality and a Western idealism, so people can see how diversity is important in expanding mindsets around the world. And having a location that is in Sri Lanka is very critical for understanding a sense of globalism for youth voices and for adults alike.
Several youth delegates also presented their poetic skills during the event.
The heavens pray in. You are an answered prayer turned God's greatest poem. You have the capability.
Ramesh Irugal Bandara for Newsfirst from New York, USA.
Starting off our sports coverage tonight with cricket. Cricket South Africa has received a cheque of $475,000 in recognition for its side finishing at the top of the ICC Test team rankings at the annual 1st April cut-off date. ICC Chief Executive David Richardson presented the cheque to his Cricket South Africa counterpart Harun Logat, who received it on behalf of the side that topped the Test rankings for the second successive year. South Africa has been holding the #1 Test spot since August 2012 and is the fourth side after Australia, India and England to achieve this distinction. While South Africa finished on top of the tree at the annual cut-off date, Australia claimed second place and won $370,000, while India and England received $265,000 and $160,000 respectively for finishing third and fourth. Sri Lanka stands in the 6th position in the Test rankings. Crossing over to South Africa, our forensics expert has told the murder trial of South African athlete Oscar Pistorius that Reeva Steenkamp, Pistorius' girlfriend, whom he is accused of killing, was shot in quick succession as she fell down. This differs from a police ballistics witness who said there was a short break between the first and second shots. Pistorius denies intentionally killing Steenkamp in the early hours of Valentine's Day last year. He says he fired rapidly in fear through the toilet door after he mistook Steenkamp for an intruder. The prosecution says the 29-year-old model and law graduate was deliberately killed after the couple had an argument. The double amputee Olympic and Paralympic athlete faces 25 years to life in prison if convicted of premeditated murder. The trial has been adjourned until tomorrow, which will be the last day before a break. Proceedings will then resume on Monday, the 5th of May.
Are you a sound expert? Just answer that question.
The final round of trials for Super Fighter, Sri Lanka's first reality sports TV program, will be held on the weekend of the 26th and 27th of this month. The final round of the trials will be held in Kandy. Super Fighter is a joint initiative of MAS Holdings, Newsfirst and the MTV and NBC media networks. Boxers will be selected under 4 weight classes at the final round of the trials in Kandy to join the finalists for the coveted title of Super Fighter.
And that wraps up this edition of Primetime News. As always, I'm Adushka Balasuriya.
It's a pleasure having you with us. I'm Minoshi Ratnasekara. Take care and good night.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.